The cool morning air hit Edward's face as he wandered through the deserted city streets. It offered a momentary glimmer of relief, a stark contrast to the stifling guilt that clung to him like a shroud. His thoughts swung between despair and a faint hope for redemption, a struggle mirrored in the flickering neon signs reflecting off the damp pavement. He passed by Pizzeria George, the warm glow of its lights spilling onto the sidewalk. A help wanted sign hung in the window, a beacon in the pre-dawn gloom. With nothing to lose, Edward pushed open the door, the smell of baking dough and simmering sauce momentarily eclipsing the bitter taste of regret. Hours earlier, he had woken with a start, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He was drenched in cold sweat, the sheets twisted around his trembling legs like ghostly restraints. The same nightmare, a relentless reminder of his past, had once again invaded his sleep. The screeching sound of brakes, the sickening crunch of metal against metal, the heart-wrenching screams every night he relived the accident, the horror as vivid as the day it happened. 15 years ago, a young and reckless Edward, fueled by alcohol and a sense of invincibility, had decided to take a group of girls to a lake after a night of partying. On their way back, he tried to overtake an old Chevy truck, a decision that ended in a tragic inferno. The truck lost control, crashing into a tree and bursting into flames. Paralyzed by fear, Edward had fled the scene, but the guilt had clung to him with the tenacity of a shadow, darkening every corner of his life. He stumbled out of bed, the weight of his past heavy on his shoulders, and made his way to the bathroom in his small, cluttered apartment. The reflection staring back at him from the mirror was a stranger, red-rimmed eyes, deep circles etched beneath them, and disheveled hair. His once carefree life of luxury, built on his family's wealth and his father's success, had crumbled into a desolate wasteland of empty bottles, beer cans, and dirty dishes. The peeling walls, adorned with faded posters and torn photos, were a testament to a life that had spiraled out of control. He splashed cold water on his face, a futile attempt to wash away the drowsiness and the despair. His family's calls had ceased to be a source of support, replaced by a chilling silence that spoke volumes of their shame and rejection. Edward knew he had hit rock bottom. He yearned for change, for a chance to redeem himself, but the strength to climb out of the abyss eluded him. The walk had been a desperate attempt to clear his mind, to find a sliver of peace in the chaos of his thoughts. Now, standing in the doorway of Pizzeria George, the aroma of fresh bread and the promise of a new beginning offered a flicker of hope in the darkness that had consumed him. And stepped inside, the aroma of freshly baked dough and simmering tomato sauce, enveloping him like a warm embrace. It was a simple scent, yet it evoked a sense of home he hadn't felt in years, a comforting contrast to the sterile emptiness of his apartment. Behind the counter, an older man with flour-dusted hands looked up and smiled. "Can I help you with something, young man?" George asked, his voice as warm and inviting as the pizzeria itself. Edward, unsure what to say, simply nodded towards the help wanted sign. "I saw the sign in the window. Do you still need help?" George studied him carefully, his gaze lingering on Edward's disheveled appearance and tired eyes. It was as if he could see beyond the outward signs of hardship, recognizing a flicker of desperation and a yearning for change. He nodded slowly. "Yes, we still need help. Do you have any experience in the kitchen?" Edward shook his head, a lump forming in his throat. "No, but I can learn. I need this job." George's eyes softened with understanding. "All right, everyone deserves a second chance. You can start tomorrow morning. We work hard here, but we also support each other. Welcome to Pizzeria George." A spark of hope ignited within Edward, a tiny ember glowing in the darkness that had shrouded him for so long. Maybe, just maybe, this was his chance to redeem himself, to find a new path, a way out of the labyrinth of guilt and regret. He left the pizzeria with a newfound lightness in his step, a faint smile playing on his lips. The city streets, once a bleak reminder of his despair, now seemed to hold a glimmer of promise. He returned to his apartment and, for the first time in a long while, felt motivated to tidy up the wreckage of his life. Empty bottles clinked as he gathered them. Dirty clothes formed a precarious pile, and the greasy film on the dishes surrendered to the scrubbing sponge. As he worked, he thought about the change he wanted to see in his life, the opportunity George had given him. That night, he went to bed with a sense of purpose, a feeling that had been absent for far too long. The next morning, Edward woke early, the remnants of his nightmare fading like a distant echo. He cleaned himself up, shedding the grime and despair along with the dirty water, and dressed in the best clothes he had left. He walked to the pizzeria with a newfound determination, his footsteps echoing his resolve. "You don't have to thank me," George replied, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Just make sure you keep working hard and learning from your mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance." The small room behind the pizzeria was a stark contrast to the luxury Edward was accustomed to. It was a humble space, furnished with nothing more than a bed, a table, and a chair. But for Edward, it was a sanctuary, a refuge from the storm that threatened to engulf him. George's kindness not only provided him with a roof over his head, but also gave him a renewed motivation to keep moving forward. Over time, Edward began to adapt to his new life. He learned to manage his finances with a newfound prudence, meticulously budgeting every penny. He focused on his work, mastering the art of pizza making with quiet determination. His relationship with George deepened, evolving into a bond of mutual respect and affection. Little by little, Edward began to feel like he was regaining control of his life, piece by piece. But the past still haunted him. The nightmares persisted, vivid and unrelenting. And though he found solace in his work and George's unwavering support, he knew he had a long way to go before he could fully redeem himself. One night, after a particularly exhausting day, Edward sat in his small room, the silence broken only by the ticking of an old clock. He reflected on his life, on the mistakes he had made, the opportunities he had squandered, and the pain he had caused. He had lost much, but he had also gained something invaluable, a chance to start over. With renewed determination, he vowed to prove to George, to his family, and, most importantly, to himself, that he was capable of change. He would build a life of dignity and purpose, a life that honored the second chance he had been given. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long time, Edward felt a glimmer of hope, a sense of anticipation for the future. He was ready to face it, with courage and unwavering resolve. Edward got to work, his hands moving with a newfound confidence as he carefully followed George's instructions. He learned to coax the dough to life, kneading it until it reached the perfect consistency, a smooth, elastic texture that yielded to his touch. He discovered the subtle art of letting it rest, allowing time and warmth to transform the simple mixture into a living, breathing entity. Though the work was physically demanding, Edward found a quiet satisfaction in the simplicity and routine of the process. Each perfectly formed loaf of bread, each golden crust emerging from the oven, was a testament to his dedication and newfound skill. As the weeks turned into months, Edward's responsibilities at the pizzeria grew. He graduated from dough-making apprentice to pizzaiolo in training, learning the secrets of crafting the perfect sauce, wielding a knife with precision to chop fresh vegetables, and sliding pizzas into the fiery embrace of the oven with the practiced ease of a seasoned chef. He embraced every task, from the mundane to the intricate, finding a sense of purpose in contributing to the smooth operation of the pizzeria. Edward felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew this day would come, the day of reckoning, but he wasn't prepared to face the harsh reality of his situation. "Mom, I'm trying to change. I found a job, and I'm starting over," he pleaded, his voice cracking with a mixture of desperation and defiance. That's good, but you need to learn to be responsible for yourself. You're not a child anymore, Edward. It's time for you to grow up and face the consequences of your actions." The line went dead, the abrupt silence amplifying the sting of his mother's words. Despair threatened to consume him, but beneath the weight of his predicament, a spark of determination flickered. He wouldn't let this setback derail his progress. He wouldn't let his parents' disappointment define him. He would prove them wrong. That night, as he walked back to his apartment, a wave of nausea washed over him. He didn't have enough money to pay the rent. The stark reality of his situation hit him like a tidal wave, threatening to sweep him away into a sea of homelessness and despair. He had to find a solution, and fast. The following weeks were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. Edward juggled his job at the pizzeria with a frantic search for a solution to his financial crisis. The pressure mounted, taking a toll on his already fragile health. He barely slept. His appetite vanished, and his once vibrant eyes were now dull with exhaustion and worry. George, with his innate empathy and keen observation, noticed Edward's distress. One afternoon, after the last customer had left, and the aroma of pizza had given way to the quieter scent of cleaning supplies, George invited Edward to sit with him. "Edward," George began, his voice gentle but firm, "I've noticed something's bothering you." "What's going on?" Edward hesitated, the weight of his predicament pressing down on him. Finally, he decided to confide in the man who had offered him a lifeline. "My parents have stopped supporting me financially. I don't have enough money to pay rent, and I don't know what to do." George looked at him with compassion. "You know, we all face challenges in life. What's important is how we handle them. If you need a place to stay, there's an empty room in the back of the pizzeria. It's not much, but it's better than being on the street." An immense wave of relief washed over Edward. "I don't know how to thank you, George. This means a lot to me." George was already there, his hands expertly kneading the dough, the rhythmic movements a soothing balm to Edward's frayed nerves. He greeted Edward with a warm smile and patiently taught him the basic tasks, starting with cleaning and maintaining the restaurant. As he worked, Edward observed the interactions between George and the regular customers. They greeted him with genuine affection and respect, their easy banter filling the pizzeria with a sense of community. It was clear that George was more than just a pizzeria owner. He was a pillar of support, a father figure to many. Edward felt a surge of admiration and gratitude, recognizing the lifeline that had been offered to him. The day passed in a blur of activity, and though physically exhausted, Edward felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Before he left, George handed him an envelope. "It's your first pay," George said, a hint of pride in his voice. "I know it's not much, but it's a start." Edward accepted it gratefully. "Thank you, George. I promise I won't let you down." "I know you won't, Edward," George replied, his eyes twinkling. "We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to learn from them and move forward. You have a chance to do that here." Edward left the pizzeria with renewed hope blossoming in his chest. As he walked back to his apartment, he thought about the future he could build, a future based on honest work and genuine connections. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face it, one day at a time. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of adjustment. The humble environment of the pizzeria was a far cry from the luxurious life he once led, but Edward found comfort in the routine and simplicity of his new reality. However, the weight of his past still lingered, a constant shadow threatening to engulf him. One afternoon, while cleaning the tables after the lunch rush, his phone rang. The name on the screen sent a shiver down his spine. Ashley, his mother. He hesitated, knowing that conversations with her were always fraught with tension and unspoken accusations. Finally, with a deep breath, he answered. "Edward," Ashley's voice was sharp, laced with a familiar disapproval. "We need to talk." Your father and I have decided to cut off all your financial support. We can't continue to enable your irresponsible lifestyle." Ashley's words were like a punch to the gut, each syllable laced with icy disapproval. The regular customers, with their familiar faces and friendly banter, began to acknowledge his presence. Some even offered words of encouragement, their kind remarks like unexpected rays of sunshine breaking through the clouds of his past. "You're doing a great job, young man," Robert, an elderly gentleman with a twinkle in his eye, once told him. "Keep it up, and you'll see how things get better." The unwavering support from the community, coupled with George's steady guidance, helped Edward regain some of the confidence he had lost. He started to feel like he belonged, like he was part of something bigger than himself, a place where he could make a difference, however small. George, with his endless patience and unwavering belief in Edward's potential, became a father figure, offering the kind of guidance and support that Edward had craved for so long. He was a mentor, a confidant, and a friend, always ready with a helping hand and a word of encouragement. One afternoon, while wiping down tables after the lunch rush, Edward paused to observe George interacting with the customers. He watched as George effortlessly navigated the bustling pizzeria, greeting each person by name, inquiring about their families, and sharing a laugh or a kind word. It was clear that George wasn't just running a business. He was cultivating a community, fostering connections, and spreading warmth and joy with every slice of pizza. Edward realized then that he wanted to be like George. He wanted to be someone others could rely on, someone who made a positive impact on the lives of those around him. This realization gave him a new perspective on his own journey of redemption. It wasn't just about atoning for his past mistakes. It was about building a future filled with purpose and meaning. One evening, after the last customer had departed and the aroma of pizza had settled into the warm wood of the tables, George invited Edward to sit with him. "Edward," George began, his voice filled with genuine warmth, "you've been doing an incredible job. I'm very proud of your progress." "Thank you, George," Edward replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." George smiled and patted him on the shoulder. "We all need help at some point in our lives. What matters is what we do with that help. And you, my friend, are doing a great job. I want you to know that you'll always have a place here, not just as an employee, but as part of this family." Edward felt a lump form in his throat, but this time it wasn't from anguish or despair. It was from gratitude and a sense of belonging. "I promise I won't let you down, George. I'll do everything I can to keep improving and be someone you can be proud of." With each passing day, Edward felt more rooted in his new life. He found satisfaction in the honest work, the camaraderie of his colleagues, and the genuine relationships he was building. Though the weight of his past still lingered, he was beginning to see a brighter future, one where he could redeem himself and find the peace he so desperately craved. Edward knew the path ahead would be long and full of challenges, but with the support of George and the community he had found at Pizzeria George, he felt ready to face it. This new chapter in his life offered him not only a chance for redemption, but also the opportunity to become the best version of himself. One morning, Edward arrived at the pizzeria early, the familiar routine, a comforting anchor in his life. As he chopped vegetables and prepared the sauce, George entered the kitchen, a broad smile on his face and a young woman by his side. "Edward, I want to introduce you to someone," George announced. "This is Amber. She's going to be joining us at the pizzeria." Amber was a breath of fresh air, a vibrant presence amidst the flour dust and simmering sauces of the pizzeria. With her dark brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and bright eyes that sparkled with a mix of shyness and determination, she exuded a quiet strength that drew Edward in. She wore her new apron with a touch of nervous pride, her hands fidgeting slightly as she took in her surroundings. Edward, remembering his own apprehension on his first day, offered her a warm smile, and extended his hand. "Hello, Amber. Welcome. I am Edward." "Hi, Edward. Thank you," she replied, her voice soft yet firm as she shook his hand. George, beaming with fatherly pride, turned to them both. "Edward, could you show Amber around the kitchen and teach her some of the basic tasks? I want her to feel comfortable here." "Of course," Edward nodded, happy to share his hard-earned knowledge. "Come on, Amber. I'll show you how we prepare everything." As Edward guided Amber through the intricacies of dough preparation, the rhythmic dance of chopping vegetables, and the meticulous organization of the kitchen, a comfortable camaraderie blossomed between them. Amber, initially reserved, gradually opened up, revealing a sharp intelligence and a thoughtful sensitivity that captivated Edward. They discovered a shared history of struggle, a mutual yearning for redemption, though the specifics of their pasts remained shrouded in mystery. "How did you end up here?" Edward asked one day as they worked side by side, their hands moving in a synchronized ballet of pizza creation. Amber paused, her brow furrowed in thought. "I was looking for a job, and someone recommended George's Pizzeria. I need the money to help my father." "He's sick." Edward nodded, feeling a deeper connection forming between them. "I understand. We all have our reasons for being here, but it's a good place. George is a great man." Amber's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Yes, I've noticed. Everyone here seems to care about each other. It's something you don't find in many places." As the weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. They navigated the controlled chaos of the kitchen with practiced ease, their laughter mingling with the sizzle of pizza crusts and the cheerful chatter of customers. Edward found himself drawn to Amber's quiet strength, her unwavering kindness, and the resilience that shone through her eyes. He sensed a kindred spirit, someone who understood the weight of past mistakes and the yearning for a fresh start. However, an invisible barrier remained between them. Amber, like Edward, guarded her secrets closely. Edward, mindful of his own troubled past, respected her boundaries, giving her the space she needed to open up at her own pace. He knew that trust, like a delicate flower, needed time to blossom. One evening, as they were closing up, George called them both into his small office. "I want to thank you both for your hard work," he began, his eyes twinkling with pride. "The pizzeria has been thriving thanks to your dedication." Edward and Amber exchanged a look of satisfaction, a shared sense of accomplishment warming them from the inside out. They felt like they were part of something meaningful, something that transcended the simple act of making pizzas. "There's something else," George continued, a hint of excitement in his voice. "I've been thinking about expanding the business, maybe opening another location in the city. But for that, I'll need someone I trust to manage this pizzeria while I'm away. Edward, Amber, would you be interested in taking on more responsibilities?" Edward's heart pounded with a mix of pride and apprehension. George's trust meant the world to him, but the idea of shouldering such a significant role filled him with a healthy dose of self-doubt. Amber, too, seemed surprised by the offer, her eyes widening in surprise, before a spark of excitement ignited within them. "Of course, George," Edward replied, his voice firm with newfound confidence. "We'll do our best." Amber nodded in agreement. "We're ready for the challenge. Thank you for trusting us with this new responsibility." From that moment on, Edward and Amber worked even closer, their collaboration deepening as they delved into the intricacies of managing the pizzeria. They learned the delicate art of balancing inventory, the nuances of customer service, and the subtle dance of coordinating a team. The pressure was intense, but the satisfaction of seeing their efforts bear fruit was even greater. Through these shared challenges, their connection deepened, evolving into a bond that transcended the boundaries of friendship and blossomed into something more profound. Through these shared experiences, the bond between Edward and Amber deepened. Though they both grappled with their own inner demons, they found solace and strength in their growing connection. They understood each other's struggles, their shared desire for redemption, forging an unspoken bond of empathy and support. They knew the path to redemption was long and arduous, but at least now they weren't walking it alone. Time flew by at the pizzeria, each day a flurry of flour dust, sizzling pizzas, and cheerful chatter. The working relationship between Edward and Amber flourished, their synchronized movements in the kitchen a testament to their growing camaraderie. The pizzeria thrived under their care, the aroma of freshly baked dough and simmering sauces a siren song that lured customers from far and wide. George, witnessing their dedication and the positive impact they had on the business, beamed with pride. However, beneath the surface of success, a storm was brewing. One afternoon, as George meticulously balanced the cash register and reviewed the day's accounts, a discrepancy caught his eye. A significant amount of money was missing. It wasn't the first time this had happened, and a wave of unease washed over him. He decided not to raise the alarm immediately, but the seed of suspicion had been planted, and he knew he needed to investigate further. That night, after the last customer had bid farewell and the pizzeria was cloaked in a quiet darkness, George reviewed the security camera footage. His heart sank as he witnessed Amber, an employee he held in high regard, surreptitiously pocketing money from the cash register and concealing it beneath her shirt. Disappointment and confusion warred within him. Amber had always been a dedicated worker, her demeanor reflecting a strong moral compass. Why would she resort to such a dishonest act? The next day, George resolved to confront Amber. He wanted to give her a chance to explain herself before making any rash decisions. He waited until the end of the day, when the bustle of customers had subsided and only Edward and Amber remained, their laughter echoing through the otherwise empty pizzeria. "Amber, Edward, I need to speak with you in the office," George announced, his voice serious but controlled, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a somber gravity. Amber and Edward exchanged worried glances, their smiles fading as they followed George to his small office at the back of the pizzeria. Once inside, George closed the door, creating an air of tense anticipation. "I've been reviewing the accounts and the security camera footage," George began, his voice heavy with disappointment, "and I've seen something that deeply concerns me. Amber, I need you to be honest with me. Have you been taking money from the register?" Amber's face paled, her eyes welling up with tears. Her reaction was immediate, but it wasn't one of denial, it was one of desperation. "George, please let me explain. It's not what you think." "Show me what you have under your shirt," George instructed, his voice firm but laced with sadness. Amber, her body trembling, crossed her arms defensively. "You can't ask me to do that," she protested, her voice barely a whisper. "I said, lift your shirt," George insisted, his gaze unwavering. Finally, with a resigned sigh, Amber slowly lifted her shirt, revealing a wad of bills and something else, a network of ugly, deep scars marring her abdomen. Edward gasped, his blood turning to ice. "How did you get those scars?" he asked, his voice filled with shock and a dawning horror. Amber lowered her head, her tears falling freely as she recounted a traumatic event from 7 years ago. "It was an accident. A truck crashed and left me with these marks. Since then, my father has been sick and I have no money for his medicine," she explained, her voice choked with emotion. Edward felt a suffocating wave of guilt wash over him. He recognized those scars. He knew that accident. He was the one who had caused it. The weight of his past sins crashed down upon him, threatening to crush him beneath its immense burden. He remained silent, his voice trapped in his throat, his guilt a monstrous beast clawing at his conscience. George, witnessing the raw desperation in Amber's eyes, made a decision. "Amber," he said softly, "you shouldn't steal. If you need help, you should have asked. You must ask for it. Here, in this pizzeria, we're a family, and we support each other." George's voice was firm yet compassionate, his eyes filled with a mixture of disappointment and understanding. He handed Amber the missing money from the register. "Here's the money for your father's medicine, but please don't do this again. Trust us." Amber, her eyes brimming with tears of shame and gratitude, accepted the money and nodded. "I'm so sorry, George. I didn't know who else to turn to." Edward, overwhelmed by guilt and the urgent need to make amends, knew he had to talk to Amber about the accident. But the words wouldn't come. He needed time to process the magnitude of the situation, to find the right words, and to confront the fear that gnawed at his soul. That night, in the quiet solitude of his small room, Edward couldn't escape the image of Amber's scars, both physical and emotional. He knew he had to confess his role in the accident, to face the consequences of his actions, but first, he needed to understand the full extent of the pain he had caused. The next day, during a lull in the lunchtime rush, Edward found the courage to approach Amber. He found her at the back of the pizzeria, perched on a bench, her gaze lost in the distance. He took a deep breath and sat beside her. "Amber, can we talk?" he asked gently. Amber turned to him, her eyes filled with a lingering sadness and mistrust, but she nodded slowly. "Sure, Edward." "What's going on?" Edward swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. "I want to know more about what happened with the accident. I feel like I need to understand." Amber's gaze fell to her lap, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her apron. "It's not something I like to remember, but I guess talking about it might help." Edward nodded, encouraging her to continue. "It was 7 years ago," Amber began, her voice trembling. "We were on our way home, my father, my little sister, and I, after spending the day at the lake. It was a quiet afternoon. We were happy. But then a sports car, a BMW, appeared out of nowhere, trying to overtake us. The driver was drunk, lost control, and forced us off the road. The truck crashed into a tree and caught fire." Edward felt a sickening knot tighten in his stomach as he listened to Amber's words, each syllable a sharp blade twisting in his heart. "I managed to get out of the car," Amber continued, her voice cracking, "but my father and sister were trapped. I tried to help them, but the fire, I couldn't do anything." She paused, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her cheeks. "My father suffered severe burns and has been sick ever since. My sister, she didn't survive." Edward's breath hitched in his throat. He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but he felt paralyzed by guilt. Amber's voice, filled with a raw, unfiltered pain, echoed through the quiet pizzeria. "Since that day, I've lived with these scars, both on my body and in my soul. And the worst part is knowing that the person responsible for all this, that damn driver of the BMW, you fled the scene. He never paid for what he did. I've always hated that person, without even knowing who they were." Edward felt the walls closing in on him. Amber's confession, her pain, her hatred, crashed over him like a tidal wave. He knew he had to tell the truth, but the words seemed to lodge in his throat, refusing to come out. "Amber," he finally managed to say, his voice barely a whisper, "I have something to tell you, something you need to know." Amber looked at him, her eyes red and swollen. "What is it, Edward?" Edward took a deep breath, steeling himself for the impact of his confession. I was the driver of that BMW. It was me who caused the accident." The silence that followed was deafening. Amber stared at him, her face a canvas of emotions: shock, disbelief, and finally, pure horror. She jumped to her feet, backing away from him as if he were a venomous snake. "What are you telling me? That you're the one who ruined my life? You're responsible for my sister's death?" She screamed, her voice raw with fury and pain. Edward stood up, attempting to approach her, but Amber recoiled, raising a hand to stop him. Don't come any closer. I can't believe this. All this time, you've been here, working with me, knowing what you did. Amber, I'm so sorry, Edward pleaded, his voice breaking. There are no words that can undo the damage I've done, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends. Please, let me help you. Amber looked at him, her eyes filled with a torrent of emotions, pain, anger, betrayal. I can't even look at you right now. I need time. I need to think. Without waiting for a response, Amber turned and fled, leaving Edward standing alone, engulfed in a storm of guilt and despair. He knew the path to redemption would be long and agonizing, but he was determined to walk it, no matter how difficult it might be. Edward spent a sleepless night, the heart-wrenching conversation with Amber replaying in his mind like a broken record. Guilt and pain gnawed at his soul, but he knew he couldn't give up. He had to find a way to make amends, to earn Amber's forgiveness, and to finally confront the demons of his past. He had taken the first step towards redemption, but the road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. The next morning, Edward arrived at the pizzeria with a heavy heart, unsure if Amber would even show up for work. To his relief, she arrived shortly after opening, her presence a beacon of hope amidst the turmoil of his emotions. Though she avoided his gaze, the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. They both threw themselves into their tasks, the familiar rhythm of the pizzeria providing a temporary refuge from the emotional storm raging within them. George, with his innate sensitivity, noticed the palpable chill between his two employees. He decided to give them space, trusting that they would find a way to navigate their newfound conflict. However, at the end of the day, he called them both into his office, his expression a mix of concern and determination. I know something serious is going on between you two, he began, his voice calm yet firm. If we want to continue as a team, we need to sort this out. Amber, Edward, what's going on? Amber looked at George, then at Edward, her eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. George, Edward confessed something to me yesterday, something that changed everything. Edward nodded, taking a deep breath. George, years ago, I caused an accident. It was the same accident that involved Amber and her family. I was the driver of the BMW that caused it all. George absorbed this revelation in stunned silence, his jovial expression replaced by a look of grave concern. Finally, he spoke, his voice measured and calm. This is very serious. But it's also important that we discuss how we can move forward from here. Amber, her voice shaky but resolute, took the lead. Since that accident, I've lived with hatred towards the driver. Knowing it was Edward, it has shattered me. But I also understand that everyone makes mistakes, and living with hatred won't help me heal. Edward looked at her with a mix of gratitude and remorse. Amber, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends for what I did. I want to help you and support your family. Just give me a chance to prove it. Amber sighed, tears welling up in her eyes. It's not something I can easily forgive, Edward, but I'm willing to try, to keep working with you, as long as you're honest, and do everything you can to make it right. Sensing a fragile glimmer of hope, George intervened. Very well. What matters now is how we handle this situation. Edward, Amber, I suggest you take some time to talk and understand each other better. The pizzeria can wait. Amber and Edward nodded in agreement. They left the familiar warmth of the pizzeria and ventured into the nearby park, seeking a quiet sanctuary where they could delve into the depths of their shared pain and the possibility of healing. Sitting on a weathered park bench beneath the shade of an ancient oak tree, Amber turned to Edward, her gaze filled with a mix of pain and determination. I want to know everything, Edward. I want to understand why you did what you did and how you've gotten to this point. Edward, ready to bare his soul, nodded. Years ago, I was living a life of excess. I had no responsibilities, relying entirely on my family's money. That night, I was drunk and didn't think about the consequences of my actions. After the accident, I was consumed by guilt, but I lacked the courage to face my mistakes. It was George and this pizzeria that helped me find a new path. Amber listened intently, her expression softening slightly. I understand that everyone makes mistakes, Edward. But what hurts me is that your mistake destroyed my life and my family's. My sister died. My father never recovered. We've lived in misery ever since. Edward felt tears prick his eyes. Amber, I am deeply sorry. There's no excuse for what I did. But I'm here now, willing to do whatever it takes to help you. If you give me a chance, I want to redeem myself and show you that I've changed. Amber nodded slowly, a flicker of hope igniting within her. All right, Edward. I'll give you that chance. But you must understand that it will take time and a lot of effort. It won't be easy for either of us. Edward, his heart filled with a newfound determination, met her gaze. I know, Amber. I'm willing to do whatever is necessary. With a fragile yet firm understanding, they returned to the pizzeria, their footsteps echoing with the weight of their shared past and the tentative hope for a future where forgiveness and redemption might bloom. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but they would walk it together, their shared pain and their burgeoning connection a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Work at the pizzeria continued, each day a testament to Edward's commitment to change. He poured his heart and soul into every task, his dedication a silent apology for the recklessness of his past. But Edward knew that true redemption required more than just hard work. It demanded facing the ghosts of his past and seeking reconciliation with those he had hurt. He decided it was time to reconnect with his father, Arthur, a man whose disappointment had weighed heavily on Edward's conscience. The relationship with his family had been strained ever since the accident and Edward's subsequent descent into a spiral of self-destruction. But now, armed with a newfound sense of purpose and a yearning for forgiveness, Edward resolved to bridge the chasm that separated him from his father. One afternoon, after the last customer had departed and the aroma of pizza lingered in the air, Edward summoned the courage to call his father. The phone rang several times, each ring amplifying his anxiety, before Arthur finally answered. Edward, what do you want? His father's voice was cold, laced with a bitter disappointment that pierced Edward's heart. Dad, I need to talk to you. I know I've made many mistakes, but I'm trying to change. I'm working hard, and I want to make things right. I need your help, Edward pleaded, his voice trembling with a mix of desperation and determination. A heavy silence hung in the air, the unspoken words echoing through the phone lines. Finally, Arthur responded, his voice weary but with a hint of cautious curiosity. All right, Edward. Come see me tomorrow. We'll talk. The next day, Edward embarked on a pilgrimage to his childhood home, a place filled with both cherished memories and the lingering shadows of his past mistakes. The drive was a journey through time, each mile a reminder of the privileged life he had squandered and the pain he had caused. But amidst the regrets, a sense of hope flickered, fueled by his determination to make amends. Arthur received him in his study, a room that exuded an air of power and success, its shelves lined with leather-bound books and its walls adorned with accolades. Edward sat across from his father, the weight of their strained relationship pressing down on him. Edward, what do you want to tell me? Arthur asked, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Dad, I know I've been a huge disappointment to you and Mom. I made terrible mistakes, especially with the accident. But I'm working at George's Pizzeria, and I found a reason to change. I want to make things right, not just for myself, but also for the people I've hurt. I need your support to keep moving forward, Edward confessed, his voice raw with sincerity. Arthur studied him for a long moment, his gaze piercing and unwavering. Finally, he sighed, a hint of weariness in his voice. "Edward, I've always wanted the best for you, but you have to want it too. If you're truly willing to change, I'll support you. But you have to prove it." Edward nodded, his heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down." With his father's support, Edward was able to secure the necessary funds to help George's pizzeria expand and to provide much-needed assistance to Amber's family. This financial support was not only crucial for Edward's stability, but also for the health of Amber's father, who desperately needed urgent medical treatment. Returning to the pizzeria, Edward shared the good news with Amber and George. "I talked to my father. He's going to help us with the funds for the pizzeria and for your father's treatment, Amber." Amber looked at him with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Edward, this is incredible. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me, Amber. This is the least I can do. It's my way of starting to make up for my mistakes," Edward replied sincerely. The relationship between Edward and Amber continued to blossom, nurtured by their shared experiences and their growing admiration for each other. They worked side by side at the pizzeria, their laughter and conversations filling the once quiet corners. Edward found himself falling deeply in love with Amber, drawn not only to her beauty, but also to her resilience, her kindness, and the strength that radiated from within her. One evening, as they were closing up the pizzeria, Edward decided to confess his feelings. "Amber, I know it's still hard for you to trust me, but I want you to know that I care about you a lot. I've fallen in love with you, and I'll do everything I can to show you that I'm worthy of your trust and love." Amber's eyes shimmered with emotion. "Edward, I also feel something for you. But we need time to heal and build something solid. I'm willing to try, but step by step." Edward nodded, a hopeful smile gracing his lips. "Of course, Amber. Step by step. I'm here for whatever you need." As the days turned into weeks, the pizzeria thrived under their joint management. Arthur's support allowed for improvements to the facilities and expanded offerings for the community. Amber's father's health steadily improved with proper treatment, and the weight of medical expenses lifted from Amber's shoulders. Edward evolved from a reckless young man, lost in a haze of privilege and irresponsibility, into a humble and responsible individual. He found genuine satisfaction in honest work, the camaraderie of his colleagues, and the warmth of true connection. The excesses of his past faded into distant memories, replaced by a newfound appreciation for the simple joys of life. Amber, too, found solace and strength in Edward's unwavering support. Together, they navigated the lingering shadows of their past, their shared experiences forging an unbreakable bond. With Arthur's support and the continued success of the pizzeria, their lives gradually stabilized, the wounds of the past slowly healing under the balm of forgiveness and love. The pizzeria, once a symbol of Edward's downfall, transformed into a beacon of hope and community. The relationships among the employees deepened, their shared dedication creating a harmonious symphony of flour dust, sizzling pizzas, and cheerful laughter. One morning, George called a meeting before the pizzeria opened its doors to the hungry lunchtime crowd. "I want to thank you all for your hard work and dedication. The pizzeria is thriving thanks to your efforts. But I also want to remind you that this isn't just a business, it's a family. We support each other through good times and bad." Edward and Amber exchanged a knowing glance, the weight of George's words resonating deep within their hearts. They had come a long way, but their journey towards healing and redemption was far from over. In the following weeks, Edward and Amber channeled their energy into further improving the pizzeria. They implemented innovative ideas to attract new customers, hosting themed nights that transported diners to faraway lands and offering special promotions that filled the pizzeria with a lively buzz. They also became more involved in the community, participating in local events and donating to charities, their kindness rippling outwards like waves in a still pond. One afternoon, after a particularly hectic day, Edward and Amber sought refuge in the nearby park, their footsteps a welcome respite from the bustling pizzeria. "You know, Edward," Amber mused, as they strolled along the winding path, "I never imagined I would find peace and happiness in a place like this, after everything that happened." Edward gazed at her with a tender smile. "I feel the same. Finding this pizzeria, George, and especially you, has given me a reason to change and be better." Amber stopped and looked into his eyes, her gaze filled with a mix of gratitude and affection. "Thank you for everything you've done for my family and me. I know it's still hard sometimes, but I'm starting to trust you, and that means a lot to me." Edward's heart swelled with emotion. "Amber, I'll do everything I can to earn your trust every day, no matter what the future holds." Amber smiled and gently squeezed his hand. "I'm willing to try, Edward." Step by step, as we said. As they walked back to the pizzeria, hand in hand, Edward felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew he had to keep striving, not just for Amber, but for himself as well. The simple yet meaningful life he was building filled him with a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. Their relationship continued to deepen, their shared dreams and aspirations, weaving a tapestry of hope and possibility. They envisioned a future where the pizzeria flourished, a place where laughter and community intertwined, and where their love story continued to unfold. One evening, as they were closing up, Edward paused to reflect on his journey. He marveled at how much he had changed, how the reckless young man he once was had been replaced by someone who found joy in honest work, genuine connection, and the unwavering support of a loving community. He still had much to prove, but he was ready to face any challenge with courage and unwavering dedication. Edward and Amber expanded their efforts to serve the community, organizing food drives for those in need and hosting free cooking classes that filled the pizzeria with the joyful chatter of children and the enticing aroma of freshly baked pizzas. These acts of kindness not only strengthened their bond with the community, but also filled their hearts with a profound sense of purpose. During one of these cooking classes, Amber watched as Edward patiently guided a group of eager children through the art of pizza making. His gentle demeanor and genuine enthusiasm warmed her heart, a constant reminder of how far he had come. At the end of the class, as they were cleaning up, Amber turned to Edward, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "You're doing a great job with the kids. I can see how much they care about you." Edward smiled, his heart overflowing with warmth. "Thank you, Amber. I never thought something like this could make me feel so fulfilled. But here, with you and this community, I feel like I'm finally doing something meaningful." Amber gazed at him tenderly. "Edward, I think we've both found something special here. And even though the path has been difficult, I'm grateful for every step we've taken together." As the pizzeria prospered and their love deepened, Edward and Amber began to envision a future filled with shared dreams and aspirations. They talked about opening a new branch, expanding their community projects, and eventually starting a family of their own. Edward marveled at how radically his life had changed. He was no longer the irresponsible young man who relied on his family's wealth. He had found a new identity, one forged in the fires of adversity and shaped by the transformative power of love, forgiveness, and service to others. And so, the story of Edward and Amber unfolded, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of pasts and find redemption in the most unexpected of places. Their journey, born from tragedy and fueled by a shared yearning for healing, blossomed into a testament to the transformative power of love, forgiveness, and the unwavering belief in second chances. Even as their relationship blossomed and the pizzeria thrived, the ghosts of the past still lingered, casting long shadows over their newfound happiness. They both knew that life wouldn't offer an easy reprieve, that each day would bring new challenges to test their resolve. One afternoon, as Amber was meticulously preparing ingredients in the kitchen, a phone call shattered the peaceful rhythm of the pizzeria. Her mother's voice, trembling with urgency, delivered devastating news. Amber's father had suffered a relapse and was hospitalized. The news hit Amber like a tidal wave, the weight of worry and fear crashing down upon her. "Edward, I have to go. My father is in the hospital," she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. Edward immediately stopped what he was doing and rushed to her side, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "Amber, don't worry about anything here. Go to your father. I'll take care of the pizzeria." Amber nodded gratefully, her eyes filled with tears, and hurried out the door. Edward, though deeply concerned for her, focused on keeping the pizzeria running smoothly. That night, the pizzeria buzzed with activity, the aroma of freshly baked pizzas filling the air as Edward single-handedly managed the dinner rush. After closing, Edward collapsed into a chair in the office, exhausted but satisfied with how he had handled the day. However, his thoughts kept returning to Amber and her father. He picked up the phone and dialed her number, his voice filled with concern. "Amber, how is your father?" "He's stable now," Amber replied, her voice heavy with fatigue, "but the doctors say he needs more intensive treatment." "It's exhausting, Edward, but thank you for handling everything today." "You're strong, Amber. You'll get through this. And remember, I'm here to help with anything you need," Edward reassured her. The next day, Amber returned to the pizzeria, her eyes swollen from crying, but her spirit filled with renewed determination. Despite the pain, she knew she had to keep moving forward. Edward greeted her with a warm hug, his support a silent promise of unwavering solidarity. "Thank you for everything, Edward. Really, I don't know how I would have managed this without you," Amber said gratefully. "We're a team, Amber." "We're in this together," Edward replied with an encouraging smile. As the days turned into weeks, Edward faced temptations from his old life of excess. Old friends resurfaced, their voices echoing with invitations to parties and promises, reliving the carefree days of indulgence. One night, a message from one of these friends popped up on his phone, inviting him to an exclusive club. Edward stared at the message, a wave of nostalgia washing over him. He knew that attending this party could jeopardize all the progress he had made. He decided to confide in George, seeking guidance from the man who had become his mentor and friend. "George, I've been getting invitations from old friends. They're tempting me to return to my old life," Edward confessed. George looked at him with understanding. "Edward, there will always be temptations in life. The important thing is to remember why you chose to change and who you are now. You've made great progress. Don't let past mistakes define you." Edward nodded, his resolve strengthened by George's words. He knew he needed to stay strong and focused on the path he had chosen. That night, instead of succumbing to the allure of his old life, he stayed at the pizzeria, working on new projects and envisioning a brighter future. Amber, too, faced her own challenges. Her father's illness and the weight of responsibility were overwhelming at times, but Edward's constant presence and unwavering support gave her the strength to persevere. "Thank you for being here for me, Edward," she said one afternoon, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know how you do it, but you always know how to lift my spirits." Edward smiled. "I just try to be the friend and partner you need. And I admire you so much, Amber. You're incredibly strong." Over time, they both learned to balance their responsibilities with self-care, implementing rest days where they could recharge and reconnect. These precious moments became oases of calm amidst the storms of life, allowing them to enjoy each other's company and dream of a future filled with love and shared purpose. Edward and Amber faced their challenges with courage, their bond a source of strength and resilience. Though the path to redemption and inner peace was fraught with obstacles, they knew they were on the right track, their hands clasped tightly together, their hearts beating in unison. They could overcome any obstacle and build a life filled with love, purpose, and unwavering hope. As time went by, the Pizza solidified its place as a cornerstone of the community, a beacon of warmth and camaraderie. With Amber and George's unwavering support, Edward blossomed into a respected and admired figure, his dedication and resilience shining through in every interaction. Challenges persisted, but with each passing day, he felt stronger and more capable, his past mistakes fading into the background as he embraced his newfound purpose. One morning, an unexpected phone call disrupted the familiar rhythm of the pizzeria. It was Arthur, his father, whose voice, once filled with disappointment, now held a hint of warmth and pride. "Edward, I've noticed how much you've changed and grown. I'd like you to come to the office today. There's something I want to discuss with you," Arthur declared. Surprised and intrigued, Edward accepted the invitation. After finishing his shift at the pizzeria, he made his way to his father's office, his heart pounding with anticipation. Arthur welcomed him with a warm smile, a gesture that spoke volumes about the transformation in their relationship. "Edward, I'm proud of you. You've shown that you can change and take on responsibilities. That's why I want to offer you an opportunity." He gestured towards a set of documents on his desk. "I want you to be part of the family business again, but this time in a role where you can apply everything you've learned." Edward examined the documents, a mix of pride and apprehension swirling within him. "Dad, I don't know if I'm ready for this. The pizzeria and the community have taught me a lot, but the company is a different world." Arthur nodded understandingly. "I know, son, but I believe in you, and you can continue helping at the pizzeria while working with us. In fact, we could collaborate on projects that benefit both sides." Edward contemplated the offer. It was a unique opportunity to prove his worth, not only to his father, but also to himself. However, he couldn't deny the profound impact the pizzeria had had on his life, how it had been instrumental in his redemption. "Dad," Edward began cautiously, "I really appreciate this opportunity and your trust in me. But I found something in the pizzeria that I can't leave behind. It has taught me the value of honest work, the importance of human connections, and how to confront my mistakes. I can't abandon it now." Arthur looked at him, surprised but understanding. "I understand, Edward. It's important to follow what gives you purpose. I'm proud of you for making this decision." "Thank you, Dad. I want to continue helping at the pizzeria and in the community. I want to be part of something that makes a direct difference in people's lives," Edward declared with conviction. Arthur beamed with pride. "Then follow your path, son. And if you ever need anything, you know I'm always here to support you." Edward returned to the pizzeria with a renewed sense of purpose, his heart overflowing with gratitude for the journey that had led him to this point. Amber greeted him with a warm smile, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "How did it go with your father?" "Good," Edward replied. "He offered me a position at the company, but I declined. I realized that the pizzeria is where I truly belong. Here is where I can make a real difference." Amber's smile widened. "I'm proud of you, Edward. You've changed so much and found your true purpose." "I found my true purpose alongside you," Edward confessed, taking her hand. Their eyes met, and a silent understanding passed between them, their bond strengthened by their shared journey and unwavering love. One day, as they strolled through the park, Edward took Amber's hand and gazed into her eyes. "Amber, I've learned so much from you and with you. You've been my anchor and my inspiration. I want you to know that I love you and want to spend the rest of my life with you," he declared, his voice filled with sincerity. Tears of happiness glistened in Amber's eyes as she replied, "Edward, I love you too. We've been through so much together, and I know we can face anything. I want to build that future with you." With their love and commitment reaffirmed, Edward and Amber embarked on the next chapter of their journey, their hearts filled with hope and anticipation. They knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they were ready to face any challenge, hand in hand, their love a guiding light. Time marched on, and Amber's father's health gradually improved, thanks to the continued treatment. However, the mounting medical bills cast a shadow over their happiness. Edward, determined to help, sought ways to alleviate the financial burden weighing down on Amber and her family. One evening, he gathered the pizzeria staff for a surprise announcement. "I've been thinking about how we can help Amber and her family," he began, his voice filled with compassion. "I propose we organize a fundraising event, a community celebration where all proceeds go towards covering her father's medical expenses." The idea was met with enthusiastic support, and soon, the pizzeria was abuzz with preparations for the event. The community rallied around Amber and her family, their generosity a testament to the bonds forged within the walls of the pizzeria. The fundraising event was a resounding success, the pizzeria overflowing with warmth, laughter, and a shared sense of purpose. As the final tally was announced, Amber's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Edward, I don't know what to say. This is incredible," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "We're a family, Amber," Edward replied, his heart swelling with love and pride. "We take care of each other." More than ever, Edward felt a surge of protectiveness towards Amber and her family. He knew he had to do something to alleviate their financial burden. One night, after the last customer had departed and the aroma of pizza dough lingered in the air, Edward approached George with a determined glint in his eyes. "George, I know we've been doing great work here, but I need to ask you a favor. Amber's family is going through a tough time, and I'd like to organize a charity event to raise funds," Edward explained, his voice earnest. George, always understanding and supportive, readily agreed. "Of course, Edward. I think it's a wonderful idea. We can organize a special night at the pizzeria with live music and donations. I am sure the community will be eager to support such a worthy cause." With George's blessing, Edward threw himself into planning the event. He worked tirelessly, contacting local musicians, arranging for special decorations, and spreading the word throughout the community. The pizzeria, already a hub of warmth and connection, transformed into a beacon of hope and solidarity. On the day of the event, the pizzeria was abuzz with excitement. Customers poured in, eager to contribute to the cause and enjoy an evening filled with music, delicious food, and a shared sense of community. The atmosphere was electric, the air thick with compassion and goodwill. Amber, who had been kept in the dark about the event, arrived towards the end of the night, her heart heavy with worry about her father. As she stepped through the door, she was greeted by a sight that brought tears to her eyes. The pizzeria was transformed, the tables adorned with flowers, the air filled with lively music, and a palpable sense of unity radiating from every corner. "Edward, this is amazing. I don't know how to thank you," she exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. Edward embraced her, his heart swelling with warmth. "You don't need to thank me, Amber. Everyone here wanted to help. We're a family, and we support each other." The charity event was a resounding success, raising enough funds to cover the mounting medical bills and ensure Amber's father's ongoing treatment. The community, once again, demonstrated its unwavering support, their generosity a testament to the bonds forged within the walls of the pizzeria. In time, Amber returned to work, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Her relationship with Edward deepened, their bond cemented by the love and solidarity they had shared. One evening, as they were closing up, Edward took her hand, his gaze filled with tenderness. "Amber, we've been through so much together, and each challenge has made us stronger. I want you to know that I'm here for you, in good times and bad," he declared, his voice sincere. Amber smiled, her heart filled with a profound sense of gratitude. "Edward, you are my anchor. Thank you for always being by my side. I couldn't have done it without you." Life at the pizzeria continued, its rhythm a comforting constant in their lives. But their relationship had blossomed into something deeper, more meaningful. They shared not just work but also their dreams, fears, and hopes. Their connection, a source of strength and unwavering support. One day, after closing, Edward decided it was time to fully open his heart. He had faced countless challenges alongside Amber, and he knew he needed to be honest about his feelings. He prepared a special dinner at the pizzeria, transforming the familiar space into a romantic haven with candlelight and flowers. Amber arrived after visiting her father in the hospital, her heart heavy with worry. As she stepped through the door, she was surprised to find the pizzeria bathed in a soft, warm glow, a table set for two in the center of the room. Edward stood beside it, a hopeful smile on his face. "Amber," he began, his voice gentle, "I wanted to create a special moment for us, away from the hustle and bustle of the pizzeria. We've been through so much together, and He paused, his heart pounding in his chest. "I've fallen deeply in love with you." Amber's eyes shimmered with tears, her heart overflowing with emotion. "Edward," she whispered, her voice filled with love and gratitude, "I love you too." Edward waited with a nervous smile as Amber took in the scene, her eyes widening with surprise and delight. "Edward, what is all this?" she asked, her voice a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "I wanted to do something special for you," he replied, guiding her to the candlelit table. "We've been through so much together, and I wanted you to know how much you mean to me." They sat down, the aroma of delicious food mingling with the sweet scent of flowers. They talked and laughed, their familiar banter easing the tension that hung in the air. But beneath the surface, a current of anticipation flowed between them. Finally, Edward took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "Amber," he began, his gaze locking with hers, "there's something I want to tell you. Since I met you, you've been a light in my life. You've taught me to be better, to face my mistakes, and to find purpose. Every day I spend with you, I realize how much I love you." Amber's eyes shimmered with tears of joy. "Edward, I love you too. You've been my rock, my support in the darkest of times. I don't know what I would do without you." Edward reached for her hand, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Amber. I want to build a future together, full of love and hope. Will you marry me?" A moment of silent joy hung in the air before Amber. Her face radiant with happiness, nodded. "Yes, Edward, I will marry you. I want to share my life with you, through the good times and the bad." They embraced, the warmth of their love a comforting refuge. In each other's arms, they had found a home, a place of unconditional acceptance and unwavering support. The promise of a future together filled them with renewed strength and a shared determination to face any challenge that lay ahead. With their engagement sealed, they embarked on the next chapter of their journey, their hearts overflowing with excitement and anticipation. They spoke of their dreams, of expanding the pizzeria, of continuing to serve their community, and of building a family founded on love and mutual respect. They wanted their story to be an inspiration, a testament to the transformative power of change and redemption. News of their engagement spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of joy and celebration throughout the community. Regular customers, friends, and family showered them with congratulations and heartfelt wishes. George, beaming with pride, embraced them both. "I'm so happy for you both," he exclaimed. "You've worked hard, supported each other through thick and thin, and you deserve all the happiness in the world." With the community's unwavering support, and their love as their guiding star, Edward and Amber stepped confidently into their future. They continued to nurture the pizzeria, expanding its reach and deepening its impact on the community. They organized charity events, cooking classes, and support programs for young people. Their story, a beacon of hope and inspiration. Every day, Edward woke with a heart filled with gratitude. He had found not only love, but also a purpose that infused his life with meaning. With Amber by his side, he knew he could overcome any obstacle and build a life filled with joy, fulfillment, and unwavering love. As the wedding plans progressed, a growing unease settled over Edward. He knew that before committing to a future with Amber, he needed to confront his past and seek the approval of the man whose life he had irrevocably altered. It was a crucial step towards healing the wounds of the past and building a future based on honesty and forgiveness. One afternoon, with a mix of trepidation and determination, Edward decided to visit Amber's father in the hospital. Amber accompanied him, her presence a source of comfort and strength. But she knew this was a conversation Edward needed to have alone. At the door of her father's room, she gave him an encouraging smile. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, her hand gently squeezing his. Edward nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped into the room. Amber's father, a man weathered by years of pain and hardship, lay in bed, his expression etched with a mix of weariness and resentment. Upon seeing Edward, his eyes hardened. "Sir," Edward began, his voice trembling slightly, "thank you for seeing me. There's something I need to say, something I should have said a long time ago." Amber's father remained silent, his gaze fixed on Edward, waiting for him to continue. "Many years ago," Edward confessed, his voice heavy with guilt, "I was responsible for the accident that caused so much pain to your family. I was a coward and ran away from my responsibilities. All this time, I have carried the guilt and shame of my actions. There are no words that can repair the damage I caused, but I am here to ask for your forgiveness and to take responsibility for what I should have from the beginning." A heavy silence filled the room, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment. Amber's father closed his eyes, as if grappling with a torrent of emotions. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with pain and resentment. "For years, I have lived with the pain of losing my daughter and seeing my family torn apart," he said, his voice trembling. "I thought I would never find the person responsible for that night. To know that it was you. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I see that you have changed and that you love my daughter." Tears streamed down Edward's cheeks. "I understand, sir. I don't expect your immediate forgiveness. I just want you to know that I will do everything I can to make amends and take care of Amber with all my heart." Amber's father looked at Edward, his gaze softening slightly. "Edward, what you did was unforgivable. But I have seen how you have changed and become a better man. Amber has spoken to me about you and how much you have supported her. If she has found someone she can trust and love in you, then maybe there is hope for forgiveness." Edward nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. He knew the road to forgiveness would be long and arduous, but this was a crucial first step. "Thank you, sir," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I won't let you or Amber down." With a newfound sense of hope, Edward left the hospital room, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He had confronted his past, taken responsibility for his actions, and begun the process of healing the wounds he had inflicted. He found Amber waiting for him, her eyes filled with a mix of anxiety and hope. "How did it go?" she asked softly. Edward took her hand, a gentle smile gracing his lips. "It was a difficult conversation, but a necessary one. I confessed everything, and while your father may not be able to forgive me yet, I believe I've taken the first step towards earning his trust and respect." Amber squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with love and admiration. "I'm proud of you, Edward. You're doing everything you can to make things right." Thank you for giving me this opportunity, sir. I promise I won't let you down, Edward said, his eyes filled with sincerity. Amber's father sighed deeply, his gaze softening. Take care of my daughter, Edward. She deserves to be happy after everything she's been through. Edward's heart swelled with emotion. I will with all my being, he vowed, his voice thick with sincerity. As Edward left the room, he found Amber waiting in the hallway, her face etched with a mix of anxiety and hope. He embraced her tightly, a wave of relief and renewed determination washing over him. We talked, he said, his voice filled with emotion. It wasn't easy, but I think we made an important step. Amber looked at him with pride and love. I knew you would handle it well. Thank you for facing it. This means a lot to me. With her father's blessing, though still reserved, Edward and Amber continued with their wedding plans. Edward knew his redemption didn't end with a single conversation. It was an ongoing process of demonstrating his commitment and love every day, both to Amber and her family. The conversation with Amber's father had been a confrontation with his past, a painful but necessary step towards liberation. It had allowed him to face one of the darkest chapters of his life and emerge stronger, his resolve fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. As they moved closer to their wedding day, Edward and Amber's love and commitment grew stronger. With each challenge they faced, their bond deepened, grounded in truth, redemption, and unconditional love. The conversation with Amber's father marked a turning point in Edward's life. While he knew full forgiveness would take time, he felt he had made significant progress towards redemption. As the wedding approached, a new priority emerged, strengthening his relationship with his own father, Arthur. One morning, Edward decided to visit Arthur at his office. He wanted to share his journey of transformation, express his gratitude for his father's unwavering support, and seek a deeper connection. Dad, thanks for meeting with me, Edward said as he entered his father's office. Arthur looked up with a warm smile. Edward, you always have a place here. What brings you today? Edward sat down, feeling the weight of the moment. Dad, I want to talk to you about everything that has happened, about Amber, the pizzeria, and how I have changed. I also want to thank you for your support and for giving me the chance to be better. Arthur nodded, his interest piqued. Of course, son. I am here to listen. Edward began recounting his journey, from his humble beginnings at the pizzeria to his recent conversation with Amber's father. He spoke of his struggles, his triumphs, and the profound impact Amber and her family had had on his life. Arthur listened attentively, his expression a mix of pride and admiration. When Edward finished, a wave of relief washed over him. He had shared his deepest fears and vulnerabilities with his father, baring his soul in a way he had never done before. Edward, Arthur began, his voice filled with emotion, I'm incredibly proud of the man you've become. You faced your mistakes with courage and humility, and you found a path that brings you joy and fulfillment. I'm grateful to have witnessed your transformation. Edward's eyes glistened with tears. Thank you, Dad. Your support has meant the world to me. Arthur smiled. You've always had my support, son, even when you didn't believe it. I'm just glad you finally found your way. Dad, I've learned so much at the pizzeria, the value of honest work, the importance of human connection, and the need to confront my mistakes. I can't leave behind what has made me who I am today. That's why I turned down your offer to return to the company. I want to continue helping the community and working at the pizzeria, Edward explained, his voice filled with conviction. Arthur beamed with pride. Edward, you've come a long way. I'm proud of the person you've become. I understand why you made that decision, and I respect it. The pizzeria and the community have given you a new perspective, and that is invaluable. Edward smiled, feeling closer to his father than ever before. Thank you, Dad. Your support means a lot to me. I want to continue collaborating with you, but from my place at the pizzeria, helping the community. Arthur nodded. We can do great things together, son. The company can support the community projects that are important to you. We can work on initiatives that benefit everyone. With a renewed understanding and a shared purpose, Edward and Arthur began planning projects that would connect the family business with the local community. They organized charity events, supported small businesses, and offered training programs for young people, creating a ripple effect of positive change. Meanwhile, the preparations for Edward and Amber's wedding continued, the pizzeria buzzing with excitement and anticipation. George, a constant source of guidance and support, was overjoyed at the prospect of their union. One day, as Edward and Amber were immersed in their work, Arthur arrived with a proposal. I've been thinking about how the company can further support the pizzeria and the community. How about we fund a community center next to the pizzeria? It could be a place where people can gather, learn new skills, and receive support. Edward and Amber exchanged amazed and grateful glances. Dad, that would be incredible! A community center could make a huge difference here, Edward exclaimed. Amber nodded enthusiastically. Yes, it would be wonderful. Thank you, Arthur, for thinking of this. We could offer cooking classes, workshops, and so many other activities. With everyone's enthusiastic approval, they began planning the construction of the community center. The news spread quickly, and the community responded with overwhelming support. The project promised to not only strengthen the pizzeria, but also provide a safe and enriching space for everyone. Edward's relationship with his father flourished through this shared project. Arthur, witnessing the positive impact his son was having on the community, felt a surge of pride and gratitude for the path Edward had chosen. As the wedding day approached, Edward and Amber felt more connected and supported than ever. They knew that with Arthur and George's unwavering support, their love for each other, and their commitment to their community, they could overcome any obstacle and build a future filled with hope and purpose. The wedding day arrived, the pizzeria and the newly built community center adorned with lights and flowers. Family, friends, and community members gathered to celebrate Edward and Amber's union, their hearts overflowing with joy and admiration. George, with his warm smile and paternal wisdom, officiated the ceremony. Today, we celebrate not only the love between Edward and Amber, but also the strength of redemption, honest work, and commitment to community, he declared. This couple has shown that change is possible and that together we can build a better future. With those words, Edward and Amber exchanged vows, their voices filled with love and promises of unwavering support. The ceremony was a testament to the power of love, redemption, and the unwavering spirit of community. As night fell, Edward and Amber, hand in hand, looked around at the faces filled with love and support. They had found their place in the world, a place where they could face any challenge and build a life filled with purpose, love, and unwavering hope. Their wedding day was a beautiful reminder of the transformative power of love, redemption, and community. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Edward and Amber found a new normal, a shared life brimming with love, purpose, and unwavering commitment. The community center, standing proudly beside the pizzeria, became a beacon of hope and support. It offered cooking classes, job skills, workshops, and mentoring programs for young people, its doors open to all who sought guidance and connection. Edward and Amber worked tirelessly, their hearts filled with joy, as they witnessed their efforts improve the lives of those around them. One afternoon, as they were taking a break from their work at the community center, Amber turned to Edward, her eyes sparkling with love and admiration. "Edward," she began, her voice soft and filled with emotion, "I never imagined I could be this happy. You've shown me the true meaning of love, redemption, and the power of community. Thank you for sharing this journey with me." Edward smiled, his heart overflowing with love. "Amber, you are my inspiration, my rock, and the love of my life. Thank you for believing in me, for challenging me to be better, and for showing me the beauty of a life dedicated to something greater than myself." While organizing a cooking class for a group of eager children, Amber paused and turned to Edward, a nostalgic smile gracing her lips. "Do you remember how it all started?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of fondness and disbelief. Edward nodded, taking her hand, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Yes, I remember. It's incredible to see how much we've grown and changed since then." Amber's smile widened, her love for Edward radiating like a warm embrace. "We have faced so many challenges together and emerged stronger. I couldn't have imagined a better future." Time, like the gentle kneading of dough, had softened the edges of their past. Amber's father, though forever scarred by the tragedy, began to accept Edward as part of the family. Edward's unwavering love, his tireless commitment to Amber and her family, and his genuine desire for redemption spoke volumes about his transformed character. Their relationship, built on a foundation of understanding, respect, and shared experiences, blossomed into a testament to the healing power of forgiveness. Arthur, witnessing the positive impact Edward had on the community and his own life, felt a surge of paternal pride. The collaboration between the company and the pizzeria flourished, creating a ripple effect of positive change that benefited everyone involved. One day, while strolling through the park, Edward and Amber paused on a familiar bench, their hands intertwined. "Amber, we have come a long way since those early days at the pizzeria," Edward reflected, his voice filled with gratitude. "I have learned so much and found a true purpose, all thanks to you. And I have found in you an incredible partner, Edward, someone who supports and loves me unconditionally." "I couldn't have asked for a better life," Amber replied, her gentle touch a testament to their deep connection. Their story, a tapestry woven with threads of tragedy, forgiveness, and unwavering love, served as a powerful reminder that the past does not define us. It is how we choose to confront our mistakes, learn from them, and grow that truly shapes our destiny. The path to redemption may be long and arduous, but with love, support, and a sincere commitment to change, it is possible to build a brighter future. Edward's transformation from a lost and reckless young man to a responsible and compassionate individual highlighted the power of honest work, genuine relationships, and a commitment to something greater than oneself. Amber, with her strength and unwavering compassion, embodied the transformative power of empathy and forgiveness. Their journey inspired those around them, reminding them to face their own challenges with courage, seek forgiveness, and strive to make a positive impact on the world. By doing so, they too could find redemption, purpose, and a love that heals and empowers.